Welcome back to Simply Trade Tips with Hammer and Heels. I'm Renee Chiuchiarelli here with Julie Parks. And as always, we're going to leave you with a call to action, or FIO, figure it out. How you doing, Jules?
I'm great, Renee. How are you?
Good. Doing well. So we have, I think we're starting a new series.
Yes.
What are we doing today, Jules?
Oh, I'm thinking that we should cover trade and technology. It's been so hot with so many different things going on. How about we cover that? And maybe what we do is in our episodes and our series, we can kind of go a little deep on things, but maybe this one is just a bit of an overview. What do you think?
Love it. That sounds awesome. Technology is so important in our industry. So we're going to talk a little bit about how trade and technology go together.
Absolutely.
For this episode. All right. So I'm going to have you kick us off.
All right. So I think that we probably want to start with talking about the AI movement. Artificial intelligence is kind of everywhere. And how should we be thinking about it from a trade perspective? And I, in being around AI and writing policy for a large company on AI, I think I've come to learn that AI is only as good as how it's trained. So you have to know how your AI is being trained and who's training it. What is the source information? So, for example, a tariff classification system that only trains on the tariff schedule but doesn't look at rulings, court cases, might not be as smart, right? So you should think about that with the same thing with some of these AI type capabilities. They're being more intuitive with your products. But maybe, Renee, let's talk about just technology and trade in general. Why do you think it's important?
Well, I think technology helps us make better decisions because it's able to process higher volumes of data faster. And, like you said, eliminating even the AI portion. If we just not talk about AI, technology in general, you might have decision charts, flow charts in the background that are taking place. And then, you can obviously, like I said, make better decisions. Yeah. You can prevent compliance errors because you're making better decisions. So those are a couple ways.
For sure. And I think too, think about it this way too, like if the government's using the technology on your own data, shouldn't you be smarter? And that's kind of a lot of the business cases that you and I put together over the years, which is, look, we got to be better and one step ahead of what the government is looking at. So a lot of this, if you haven't embraced it already, you really need to embrace trade. And I also think back to our other episodes of embracing the chaos, right? Don't waste a good crisis. So I think now is the time to really kind of think about what needs to be automated at a big perspective. Like, Renee, how has technology helped you out? Like, what have you seen? Right.
Well, I was going to say too, back to your government, I remember when you and I first started, they really weren't using a lot of technology, and it was easier for us to get ahead of the government or U.S. Customs and Border Protection in this case, or, CBP or Census or OFAC or any of these guys. It was all paper. I mean, literally they had a red pen, and that's how they, right. Oh. So today it's just not the same environment. They're,
phase one of automation was basically giving data, but the government wasn't doing a whole lot with it unless they had a key priority initiative. Then they would get analytics around that data. But so far as edit checks, they have expanded those, but they're still not as smart as we were sitting in the company. And now I think what happened is they leapfrogged that and they're kind of smarter, I think. I don't know, right?
I think so. They're ahead of us in the technology. So to your point, we need to get ahead of them. And plus, like we said, for the reasons earlier, we make better, faster decisions. It's processing more data. And I think that's how it's helpful to your question. It's more, it allows us to focus our resources on strategy, in the company and versus data and, going through massive amounts of data. So anyway, that's how I think it's helpful.
Yeah. And so Renee, let's also elephant in the room, right? Are we losing our jobs because of tech? How do you think about the job and the headcount and all that, those things that go together?
I think our jobs become more interesting. I don't think we lose jobs. It seems though that's the philosophy, or that's what's thought of, because you're like, okay, the person right now that analyzes the number of shipments coming in, and do I need FDA, right? Do I need a clearance with Food and Drug Administration, a partner government agency? Well, and if tech's going to do that for me, technology, what am I going to do? Because that's my job. I'm supposed to know if my product has an FDA requirement. Well, what you'll be doing instead is getting the documents together, working with the customs broker, maybe working with product compliance and engineering, versus just this basic information. Hey, my product requires an FDA pre-market notification, for example, right?
I agree with that. It goes to more of like managing to exceptions, right? And letting your process manage out of exceptions. But something about I wanted to share about like what y'all love to do out there, right? So there's some people that just love doing shipment level in analytics, right? There is
Tactical.
the show of that in tech, right? So when you think about touching every entry, touching every line, it gets to the point where you're moving toward that exception management for that piece as well. And to your point, Renee, getting smarter at doing that work, right? Whereas on the like if you're working on a free trade agreement qualification process, tech also does the same thing. But I think we as trade professionals need to make a decision on what side of the aisle do we want to be on? Because what I found in the companies that I've worked my butt off to automate is that the people sometimes absolutely love the certain elements of like a shipment process. And if you move them away from that shipment level process and you put them into like what I call batch managed processes, where you're working on free trade agreement and then someone else is doing the chapter 98 verifications, like that batching, I used to have variety and now I don't have variety anymore. So we need to think about the profession too and what our likes and dislikes are, because it isn't just a blob of a trade job that you do everything. We're getting to the point where we're specialized like doctors are, right? You are specialized in the heart area and you're specialized in the brain area. I think that's where we're going, but there will always be that operational piece. And I think it's important for people to decide what side they want to be on.
That's a great point, Julie. Yeah. The batching, the specialized roles. But yeah, some people do like the variety. And I think that still would exist in a smaller organization, right? In a large company where like you and I were, the roles become more specialized, like assembly line, right? Example. But maybe in a smaller organization, you would have the opportunity to be jack of all trades, for example.
Yeah, and kind of back to our career episode, that's why you want to work more in what we call a lattice environment. So you lattice your roles up the chain. It's not a linear escalation, right? You need to hang out on free trade agreements, and you need to move over to Chapter 98. You need to hang out in drawback. You need to roll into all these lattice type roles before you hit the ultimate end game.
Okay.
Okay, let's shift.
So what about, So just a little for everybody listening, all the audience, Julie and I are going to probably do several episodes in technology because there's a lot to talk about. But first, we're going to talk about what are products and entities. That's so we wanted to give you an overview of what we think technology is good for. But now we're going to get into the nitty gritty, right, Jules?
Yeah. So I think what we want to do is introduce the where can tech be deployed, and then kind of through that introduce our next episodes, right? So we talk about products and entities. We're talking about the method to incorporate trade-related product attributes. I call it the sticky data that goes against your product and goes against your entities that help facilitate the answer to the question when the entry is actually done or when the analysis is all done. Renee, how should we be thinking about entities in a little bit more report there?
So this is like Julie said, products, then we get to entities, and entities in technology is a method to incorporate these different attributes in the supply chain. Like, for example, supply chain tracing, screening your products. So how does technology help the entities you're working with, basically? Maybe that's the simplification of it.
Right. And then I think we think about the actual work of like importing and exporting, like that is a different type of tech altogether. It does pull everything together. And I think it creates just an opportunity to kind of bring a bunch of different parties together. So not just entities that you're doing business with on a transaction, but the entities that you're hiring to help facilitate your material movement. So we have to think about that too. I also will say too, one other thing we were thinking about, Renee, is mitigators. So those are the duty reduction programs that we want to kind of chat about, and how specifically technology is helping free trade agreement eligibility, Chapter 98 eligibility. Like, can they read the rules of origin? Like, I think they're doing a pretty good job doing that. So we want to cover off on that. And then I think there's a couple more things, Renee, that we want to cover. What's your thought?
Yeah. Like, how does technology help with auditing? Auditing, I love. I don't know why. It's one of my favorite things. But for example, goods receipt, the accuracy of the data from the 7501 to your ERP. If you're using Chapter 99, is that logic you can use technology, the logic to say, hey, if I'm using 99, I need the other HS, I need 2 HS, for example. I'm sorry, not 99. That's 98. Excuse me. You need 2 HS for 98. I should have said 98.
Well, 99
but in
cases because of the tariff, right?
Oh, true.
Yeah. Primary
Our crazy EOs. Think of the number of EOs out there. So yeah, with auditing, it can really help us, technology. And then last but not least, learning your company's LMS. How can technology track what your import trade team, your trade professional team, import and export, needs to, up their skill set. Yeah. Keep up to date on all industry changes. So technology can help track all that, keep soft skills and hard skills. Mm-hmm. So anyway, those are our areas I think we're going to cover in a little more detail in the following episodes, how tech can help us. But let's, for this episode, summarize what is our FIO.
All right. So I think for this episode, because we're talking about big tech and trade, I think what we want to do is get folks thinking about a problem that they want to solve by tech. Now, this is somewhat similar to the project management episode and managing a project episode that we did. So you can use the same if you're following along at home, or you can think a new problem that you might have. But I think it's kind of think through a problem that you want solved, and then think about that as we're going through these rungs of capabilities that we need in trade.
Yeah, so maybe it would be helpful to think about the areas Julie and I just talked about: products, entities, importing, exporting, mitigators, auditing, or learning. And so, yeah, please come to our Trade Geeks community. Let us know if you are working on the FIO, or just how you're doing, what's happening. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, see you next time, Jules.
Great. Thanks, Renee.
Thanks.